In the 1970s, Penny Patterson shocked the world by announcing that she taught a gorilla sign language. Coco the Talking Gorilla became world famous with friends like Mr. Rogers and Robin Williams. But it turns out there was a lot more to it. Rival scientists were investigating whether apes could do what humans do, use language. This story is about a group of people trying to bridge the divide between humans and other animals, and how they tore each other apart in the process. A show about animals is available now. That's actually the name of the podcast. Listen now.
Eagles fans, this is Mike Kaye from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No Huddle Show podcast, where we discuss anything and everything Philadelphia Eagles. You can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles, bookmark that, and you can subscribe to our exclusive Eagles Insider Text service, where we'll break news, give you insider observations, and provide in-depth analysis. Through Eagles Extra, you can send questions and comments directly to us, and we'll respond to your phone. With me today, as always, is my fellow Eagles beat reporter, Chris Franklin. Today we're going to discuss the Eagles' 13-7 ugly loss to the Giants. We're going to discuss the future of Jalen Reagor, and we're also going to talk about the injuries that are hitting this team at the wrong time. But before we do that, Chris, let me bring you in. How you doing?
That was something yesterday. If I don't know what this team has to do, and we'll get more into this, but you had everything laid out in front of them. You had the Cowboys losing. You have a Giants team that's reeling, and they turned in that type of effort. It was inexcusable, for lack of better words. But other than that, I'm doing all right. How about you?
You know, I'm hanging in there. I missed Hanukkah last night with my kid, but he seemed to have a good time. We watched the video as we were coming down the elevator last night at MetLife.
Yeah.
It was a cold day. But you know, I got my coffee, I got my blueberry muffin this morning, and I'm doing well. You know, I think this game is so hard to kind of break down because it was like the Giants showed up and the Eagles just handed them the game. Like, I know there's always this cliche where they get paid to play too, but like, what did the Giants do that was effective on offense? On defense, they forced 4 turnovers, but largely that was due to the incompetence of the Eagles' offense. The Giants are still a bad team. Joe Judge didn't out-scheme anybody, didn't out-coach anyone. It just seemed like Nick Sirianni got too cute with his play calling. They were going up against a very poor run defense and decided to completely scrap their strategy the past 4 weeks that was successful and start passing the ball. Running backs ran the ball 10 times in the first half, which is a far cry from what they were doing before. Jalen Hurts had 2 brutal red zone interceptions. One of them, you could argue, is partially on the wide receiver, because Quez Watkins stopped on his route. The second one was clearly on Hurts. He threw it into a crowded end zone with no one open, with 2 seconds left in the game in the second half. Cost the Eagles points at the 2-yard line. Just awful stuff. So 2 red zone interceptions in a 6-point game. Boston Scott, who scored a touchdown early in the fourth quarter, then fumbled after playing really, really well down the stretch as he typically does against the Giants. That was huge. And then Jalen Reagor drops 2 passes near the end zone. And they were really good throws by Jalen Hurts, probably his 2 best throws of the game. And we should mention, the defense played relatively well. I mean, they did. 13 points off of 4 turnovers is pretty rad, if you ask me. There were some moments where Kenny Gainwell and Evan Ingram broke out for some big plays, but overall, the defense played relatively well outside of not really forcing a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones or forcing any turnovers, even though Daniel Jones is a walking turnover. Those are my early takeaways as I went on a rant for the last 2 minutes. Anyway, Chris, what were your 3 biggest takeaways from this game?
Well, the first one's obviously turnovers. You can, and I know it's cliche to say, turnovers will kill you and that'll cost you a game, but there were a couple of them were egregious. I mean, especially that Hurts one at the end of the second quarter, before going into halftime. That was just when he had to throw the ball away, and trying to force that throw in there cost the team at least 3. And then you add those 3 to like basically you saw that changed the whole entire complexion of the game, because I thought that gave the Giants defense some momentum going into the locker room, thinking like, hey, you know what, we can hang around and play with these guys. I thought if you got a field goal or even a touchdown, that would have broken their spirit a little bit more, and then you got the ball to begin the second half and move down the field. Secondly, I thought Devonta Smith should have been targeted more. We saw him break open a few times, and especially on that first Hurts interception, he was starting to break open across the middle of the field, and there are other times where Hurts just wasn't able to find them. So I think Hurts has to do a better job, especially when you're looking at your best receiver or your team. You got to try to find ways to get him the ball, or even if you try to force or take a risk. I'd rather take a risk going toward Devonta Smith than going toward Jalen Reagor. I thought if anybody's looking for any positives, I thought Derek Barnett played one of his best games of the season. I thought he was very impactful. He created a sustained rush, and he also didn't commit those any penalties, and he stayed on the backside of the defense as well too, not letting anything go outside of him. Especially when the Giants tried to do those end arounds and try to get cute themselves, trying to throw stuff that they weren't doing. So I thought that was a bright spot. But overall, this the effort that they showed out on the field, I should say effort, because I thought they played hard, but the execution was just lacking in a lot of aspects on offense. A lot.
Yeah, and execution, I do think takes the cake in this one. I do think the play calling was kind of weird. I thought the game plan was kind of dumb, based on what we had seen from the previous 4 weeks. So, excuse me. I don't know. I don't know what they saw on film that was like, yeah, we should totally scrap the strategy of just running down their throats. I don't know if it's that they respect Jordan Howard's production so much, or they were just like, they were at the 2-yard line and they had Boston Scott in there for 3 plays and they had a timeout. Why not try to run the ball with him? It doesn't always have to be about Jalen Hurts. I mean, we were in the press box. They moved Boston Scott to the slot and had an empty backfield, and everybody in the press box just yelled QB draw pretty much. You could see the QB draw on second down from space. I mean, it wasn't confusing anyone, and the Giants snuffed it out really easily. I don't know. It was a really rough game for the offense in general, and they gave it away. As Jalen Hurts said, if you turn the ball over that much, you don't deserve to win the game. Boston Scott said they beat themselves. But we really need to get into the topic of Jalen Reagor, because this is not just a problem anymore. It's like a major ordeal, right? Like, before he was just a bust. Now he's like losing games in a lot of ways. And I think I read this on Twitter referencing the John Mayer song, but like, they're slow dancing in a burning room right now. It's the Eagles and Jalen Reagor are like, just, I mean, they're trying to make this work, but like, you know that they're doomed, my dear. You know what I mean? Like, they're like,
that's a heck of a reference.
Yeah. So, look, I don't see a way Reagor's on the team next year. I don't think he should be. I think they both need a change up there. Look, from everything we had heard, there was a lot of positive stuff behind the scenes with Jalen Reagor, and it's just like, you can't drop two. Like, if he had dropped one and then come back and made the play of the game, then I think all is forgiven. But like, man, what has he done? What has he done? He's been on the Eagles as long as you've been on the beat. What has Jalen Reagor done to even warrant a draft pick, let alone a first-round draft pick? Chris, I'm going to give you the floor because you wrote a great column last night. What are your thoughts on Jalen Reagor?
Thanks. I'll start with this. I thought it was admirable that he came out and talked to us after the game and took ownership of dropping those passes. I'll give him that. But it's gotten to the point where you can't rely on this guy anymore in big spots. He doesn't come up big when you need him. It's so erratic whenever you do get something. And I mentioned this in the column. For every time you get the punt return for a touchdown against Green Bay, you get a questionable punt return decision. For every big play he makes on an end around, whenever he does one, you get a drop, or you get 5 dances around and doesn't do anything. I mean, before yesterday, 2 of the last 3 games he finished with negative yards offensively. And when the team drafted him, they looked for a guy who they thought, hey, we get the ball to him in space, he'll make something happen. Well, whenever he does, it's not going on. Granted, I'll even give him the early part of last year where he had the injuries. It's tough. I understand that people get hurt. It takes some time to get back and to play at a good level. But something has to click when you have the opportunities, when you're feeling good. You have to make plays. I mean, there were times yesterday I'm looking, and especially when they're trying to hurry up, he's lined up in the wrong areas. You saw Smith, you saw Watkins like telling him, no, go on the other side of the field that one too. So it looked like he was having issues where to line up at times. And for a second-year guy who was a first-round pick, and then it just loomed. It's just if I'm I understand what the fans are feeling, because you see frustrated because you see the talent, you see the speed, you see the elements there to make him a competent, decent wide receiver, and something's just not there to putting it all together consistently. And I'll go even one further. Who would have thought at this time, at this point in his career, in both players' career, you feel more comfortable relying on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside than you do Jalen Reagor. At least with Arcega-Whiteside, you're getting some blocking. You know what he is, and for lack of better words, and I said this yesterday, that he's basically what Jordan Matthews is for the 49ers right now. He's just a wide receiver, tight end playing with a wide receiver as his position. He's a blocker, but he's been able to make some big plays when you needed him to. He's reliable, and it's got to the point where you go, oh, wow, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside made a play, but you could actually say he made a play. I mean, Reagor made some circus catches. Don't get me wrong. That one he made in the second quarter where he's falling backwards to get some down to go on, that was a great catch. But you don't see that consistently because he always drops the easy ones. I don't know if he has to feel like he has to be in an area where it has to be a circus catch for him to make a highlight reel catch where, I'll come down and it'll be good. Something, it's at the point. I think he's back next year because they don't want to write it off. I don't think they want to write it off. They'll try to give him every chance they can. And I still would take if it was a redraft, I'm not taking the first round. That one, I think he's playing like a fifth or sixth round pick. And Quez Watkins looks like he would have warranted a first round pick. But that Quez Watkins ahead of him. Heck, I'd put him, even though yesterday he dropped another pass, I still put Greg Ward ahead of him too. He's basically a fifth guy, like a glorified special teams player at this point. And boy, you look at what Justin Jefferson's doing right now. You look at the rest of that draft class did, and you see what the Eagles are getting in the first round pick. That selection is one of the ones where it's like franchise at the all timers, and this is shaping up to be an all time fail when it comes to his selection. It's rough to see. And listen, and for everybody who listens to this podcast, they know I'm usually very, very late. I don't like to come down on too much guys because I know it's a tough job when it comes to playing receivers. So many rules, so many different things you have to discern and everything else. It's not just run, catch balls. There's so much that goes into it. But at this point, given what we've seen through a year and a half, given what we've seen when it comes to the overall production, just and progression. We hear next year I talk about progression, guys are up. You're not getting that from Reagor, and I think it's time for that experiment to move on. He's not a top 3 receiver. He just play what he is, basically a glorified special teams player. And I'll get off the soapbox now. Sorry.
No, it's good to hear. You're normally very measured. I think the biggest issue here is that they don't really have other options, and that's an indictment of Howie Roseman. It's an indictment of how this team is scouted wide receivers. John Hightower didn't work out. Granted, he was a lottery ticket. in the 5th round last year. Quez Watkins has played well, but he's also kind of disappeared. He hasn't scored a touchdown on the season. There have been a couple of times where he's misread routes that have led to Jalen Hurts interceptions, like that first one in the red zone. It seemed like he kind of stopped on the route for some reason. Devonta Smith has been reliable. I don't know what happened. Look, the Giants were bracketing Dallas Goedert, and he ended up with 1 catch for 0 yards, which is bizarre. But the Giants had a good plan in place, but there were opportunities to make plays elsewhere, and they just didn't. Greg Ward dropped another wide open touchdown pass that was right on the money from Jalen Hurts. I don't know how the guy sees the field again on offense. It's dire straits for this wide receiver group outside of Devonta Smith. And I don't know if you go more tight end looks or what, but for a head coach who prides himself on developing wide receivers, you can't. Outside of Reagor, outside of Smith and Watkins, I'm not sure what you're seeing from a developmental standpoint. Even J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who's made plays in the past 2 weeks, is getting targeted once and making a play. It's not like he's becoming a go-to guy, but I could kind of like to see him out there more. I think he played one of his biggest workloads on offense. He played 15 snaps, against the Giants. Maybe it's time to use him in the lineup and kind of try to salvage that pick in some sort of way. He's never going to be worth a 2nd round pick, but maybe he can be a guy who catches 25 passes a season for 300 yards. He's very good at picking up big chunks of yards when he does actually catch the ball. So maybe he's earned that right. Maybe it's time to drop Jalen Reagor down the lineup. But anyway, let's move on to some of the injuries. Chris, why don't you recap what they added injury to insult in this game. There's 5 games remaining. They still have the easiest schedule in the NFL, but they have to take advantage. And, now to make the playoffs, they're going to have to beat the Jets, sweep the Washington, win the next one against the Giants, and then hope that they can beat the Cowboys. Really, that's what it is. The Vikings are now the 7th seed in the playoffs, and they're 5-6. Getting to the playoffs is attainable. It's just, obviously, this game throws cold water on it. You can't guarantee that the Eagles are going to beat anyone. So give us the update on the injuries from this game, because there were quite a lot of them, and they were all pretty notable.
People who value sleep, sleep on a Nectar mattress. But you're not going to believe me. After all, I might be lying. I must be lying. The only thing you know is true is that commercials lie to you. I must be lying.
Instead of believing silly commercials, trust the more than 2 million happy sleepers who sleep on a Nectar mattress. Nectar Sleep is currently running their biggest offer ever. $399 in accessories plus $100 off. A 365-night home trial and free shipping and returns. Go to NectarSleep.com today.
Yeah, especially when you start with the quarterback position. Jalen Hurts, we saw him limping off in the 4th quarter with an ankle injury, and it's weird because it seemed like once he wasn't able to be his mobile self, he was in the pocket, he looked comfortable, he was throwing the ball downfield, was getting had some of his best throws. It was a weird coincidence when that happened, but I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to monitor throughout the rest of this week, because I think he still plays, but that could impact the way that they call this, that Nick Sirianni calls this game, and it could impact their game plan, because you can't use him to run as much as you normally do if he's got that bum ankle. You saw the trainers were working on it, and I thought it was a very interesting moment where Sirianni walked up to Hurts, and he's going to go there, and Hurts wouldn't talk to him, he wouldn't say if it was hurt or not, because he didn't want Minshew to go in. And I thought that was a pretty defining moment right there on that bench. But but we're definitely going to have to watch that happen as it goes along, the week goes along. Yeah, Jason Kelce, he missed considerable time yesterday when it came to he had a knee injury, and they looked at the tent, and he had Nate Herbig come in as center. And to me, At this point, I understand why they want to use Nate Herbig at center, but to me, he's more of a guard. And it's funny they had to use that because Kelsey eventually came back in with that knee injury, but they lost Jack Driscoll because of an ankle injury. And Driscoll's had issues staying healthy throughout his 2 years in the league, almost 2 years in the league now. And he had to be carted off. So that's something else that the fact that he had to be carted off and with that ankle doesn't bode well. Doesn't sound like he may be available for next week's game against the Jets. And you have to wonder now. Luckily the Eagles have the bye week the following week, but you have to wonder what his status is going to be going forward. Is it serious enough where he has to warrant being on injured reserve? Which also begs the question, what's going on with Brandon Brooks? And that just shines a bigger light on what's going on with that situation. You can plug Herbig in there. I think he's better at the right guard. He played it last year, but it just shines a bigger light, like what's going on with him, where is he at with his injury process. That's that. And finally, you have Miles Sanders. And to me, for a team that consistently has rushed for over 200 yards lately with this newfound running attack, you're already without Jordan Howard. Miles Sanders, he went off limping in the fourth quarter. He didn't return the game. If you're down Sanders, who just came back from his own ankle issues, and Sirianni believes say it was a foot that was messing with him, but we'll just call it lower body. If it's something that's still lingering or is hampering and he can't play, and Howard's knee is still not right, you may be looking at going into with Boston Scott against the Jets, Kenny Gainwell, who seems to be their receiving option and not a running threat, and potentially having to bring up Jason Huntley now or looking elsewhere, which probably bringing somebody else in, but I think it's going to be more Huntley they bring up from the practice squad. You're running with those three against the Jets, and that can also significantly change your game plan, meaning you have to throw more wide receiver screens now to supplement the outside running game, and then hoping Scott can be the bell cow for that game against the Jets. So there's some significant injuries that this team is facing, and thankfully they're only playing the Jets, but if this was somebody else, there had to be red alarms going on. So this first injury report, well, first when we talked to Nick later on, we're recording this on Monday morning, but when we talked to Nick on Monday afternoon, it'll be interesting to see it's there, and then that first injury report on Wednesday. That could be a MASH unit when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean that's quite the list there. Are there any reasons for optimism coming out of this game? Like that's the thing. Like there is a huge group of the fan base that seeks out positivity, and I don't want to leave them hanging. I mean, look, they should have won this game. I think they did truly beat themselves. Talking to other writers, they kind of had the same summation as well. Look, they can beat the Giants. They can certainly beat the Redskins. Will they? That's the question, right? I guess from the Jalen Hurts perspective, it's like it's just one game, sure. But also, this was awful. He did put them in position to win the game. I'm not harping on that, but I do think this game is going to be a game that's brought up when the Eagles do have to make a decision of, hey, do they stick with Jalen Hurts or do they plan to go all in on Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or draft somebody? What's your outlook on Jalen Hurts moving into these next 5 games?
I think one thing I want to see is his bounce back, especially next week. I think the good thing is if you're looking for an Eagles perspective, you're not facing a murderer's row of teams coming up here. Personally, I think they finished this stretch 4-2. But the one thing I want to see is the one thing Sirianni has wanted to see is progression and getting his players getting better, and you didn't get that yesterday from Hurts at all. And I know it's the captain obvious thing to do, especially with three interceptions, but I want to see him throw. He's throwing better in the pocket, but I want to see him do better, even better from throwing in that area. He may have to, especially with that ankle injury. And you think at this point now, the first half of the season, I give him the benefit of the first half of the season because he was still more In my mind, he was still more of a rookie starting quarterback. But it's at the point now, you're past the halfway point. You want to see him start to ascend even more. And he started to do that, but yesterday was just a big regression. When it comes to his reads, there has to be he has to quickly see that, because Devonta Smith should have had a big game. Yes, he really should have had a big game yesterday, and Hurts just didn't find him. He looked like he was looking more toward the check down routes, or he was looking more toward one side of the field, when if he was patient or looked back towards the other side of the field or scanned it a little bit better, he would have found him open. And you can't have your best receiver not getting that many targets that he did yesterday. It's just, for lack of better words, it's inexcusable. He had to do better. I think Hurts will bounce back. I think it's going to go on a run, and I think he's going to be the quarterback in 2022. I firmly believe that. He's got the tools that are necessary to do that. I think the biggest thing is, excuse me if I repeated this before here, but the one thing you see when it comes to quarterbacks, the toughest thing to do is actually have the leadership intangible and have to buy in from a locker room. You see so many quarterbacks with the arm talent. They say they have the arm talent. They can make all the throws. They can drop it in here and there. They have the size that's desired where to play the position, but you don't hear them getting the buy-in from the quarterback position. You don't see the teams believe in them, or there's one little thing that's off. Hurts has that. He has the skill to make the throws. We've seen it. You see him drop the ball in there. He comes up big when it comes up late. I mean, he put that team was a Jalen Reagor catch away from winning that game. He'll plays well in the fourth quarter. He has to do it consistently in the first three quarters and act like it's a 2-minute drill trying to win the game. He has to put a consistent effort together in order to do that. But I think he bounces back. I think he'll finish the season strong, and I think the Eagles will actually give him a chance to be the starter in 2022, and they won't use one of those 3 first-round picks to be on a quarterback.
Yeah, I as of now, I'm not off the thought process of him being Mr. 2022. Doesn't mean I wouldn't go looking. But yeah, I agree with your sentiment. So make sure you guys sign up for Eagles Extra. We're giving you exclusive commentary, exclusive features, exclusive Q&As when you sign up on NJ.com/tax. Remember, it's a 2-week free trial, so you can kind of feel around and see what you like. And then, if you love us, you can stick around. Then also make sure you download the No Huddle Show podcast wherever podcasts are available. We like being in your earbuds. Anyway, for Chris, I'm Mike. Hopefully later in the week we'll have some better news and it'll be more of a joyous conversation for you to listen to. But we'll talk to you soon.
Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/control. Go right now. Truebill.com/control. It could save you thousands a year.